Hey there, welcome back to The Scenic Route, my video series where I share all sorts of things about life and business and how they interact with one another. In case we haven't met yet, I'm Christina Marie Anderson, the owner here at Wondersoul Co., a web development studio packed with personality. And I help growing businesses create a website that acts as a strategic foundation for all of your business's online marketing efforts. And today I want to talk to you about processes. We've all heard the word systems and processes in our business. And I will wait until another day to talk to you all about building strong processes. And you might even think perhaps that video should have come first, but I had an experience recently that made me want to talk about processes and what to do if your process isn't working for a particular client. Because we all know that we can build the best processes and we can put strict boundaries in place, but there may come a time when there's a client that comes across our desk that is a good fit for us, but for whatever reason, our process just isn't working. So today I'm going to talk to you about what might happen if your process isn't working and how to decide if there's just a bunch of red flags that you need to say no, I'm not going to work with this client, or if there's a time and a place to adjust your process in order to make sure that it's working for all of the customers that you want to work with. As many of you already know, I am in the process of moving to a farm with my partner, Brian, and our two chocolate labs, Maggie and Ducky. And together we are moving a lot of stuff on our own, but we also wanted to hire a moving company to take some particular pieces and get them to the new property. So number one, we're trying to be budget conscious. And number two, we just have the ability to do a lot ourselves. And we don't want to pay for something that we have the time and ability to do. And obviously that's a calculation on our part of knowing what capacity we have and how to make all of this happen. And what I found in trying to hire a moving company, so let me just run down sort of what happened. So here's what happened. We got a stack of flyers in the mail. There were probably 8 of them from local moving companies who were offering their services to us. And most of them came with some sort of deal. If you did this and that, you would get this much money off, what have you. And we knew we needed to hire a moving company. But again, we knew that we were not hiring people to box up our 3-bedroom home and take it to the next house. We honestly don't have that much stuff, which I guess I'm really proud of, because in knowing what we could have, we've really done a really good job of not continuing to acquire things, and that's made this move super easy. So what Brian and I did was we each decided we'd split the stack in half, and he would call half of them and I would call half of them. And I started my calls on a Monday afternoon, and he wasn't going to make his calls until the next day. So what I encountered upon talking to all of these people was that I would call them and somebody in their office would answer, and they would say, okay, let me ask you a bunch of questions. And the questions that they were asking me were tangentially related, but they weren't related specifically to what I needed. So they were asking me questions like, how many bedrooms is your house? How many stories is your house? Do you have an attic? Do you have a basement? And I understand that they were trying to acquire knowledge about how much stuff we have. But nowhere in the process did they say, do you want us to move your entire house? And the answer to that for me was no. So they're continuing to ask their questions, and they get to the end and I've answered all their questions. And then they say, hey, I'm going to get all of this information over to one of our moving specialists, and they will contact you to do a virtual walkthrough of your home, and then they will get you a quote. And now here's me with a list of 7 large, bulky items that need to be moved. And I've just told them how many bedrooms my house has, that we don't have anything in our, or that we have an attic, but there's nothing in it. We don't have a basement. We have a crawl space. I've given them all this information, but none of that information relates to what I need done. So go through this process. And honestly, I went through this process with at least 3 companies, and it was so similar, and they use the exact same quoting tools that I began to wonder if I was just talking to different branches of the same exact company. Now, I went through this process 3 times. I was like, wow, this really is not what I'm looking for. I don't want to wait for your moving specialist to call me back. I don't need to do a virtual walkthrough. I have washer and dryer, a safe, 2 large pieces of living room furniture, and like a bed. That's it. That's all that needs to be moved. So I gave Brian a heads up, and I was like, hey, this is what you're going to encounter. And you may want to try to like undercut their process and say like, here, these are the things that I actually have to move. So long story short, we go through this process. We're trying to find the best deal. And Brian actually gets someone on the phone who didn't make us go through that whole process. This guy gets on the phone with Brian. Brian tells him what we need, says we're moving 7 pieces of furniture. Here's the list of furniture that we're moving. And the guy was like, yeah, here you go. $1,000. We'll move it all. It's no big deal. If you end up with an extra piece of furniture or 2, that's totally cool. But we'll be there on the day that you want us to move, and we'll get it done. And that was exactly what we needed. As customers of moving companies, we just needed someone who could give us a quote for moving a specific amount of furniture, not for moving our whole house, not for packing up our stuff, like absolutely none of that. And I, as a systems and process girl myself, of course, I understand why these moving companies had this process in place. And I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to make this a good customer experience in terms of, having someone answer the phone, getting me over to a reservations or a moving specialist, and doing that video walkthrough and really making me feel like the company understood what I needed. But in having such a specific process in place, they didn't leave any room open for my specific use case, which was, well, I actually just need a couple of things moved. And in all honesty, I was surprised that there was no option to say like, hey, I just need to move this piece of furniture from here to here. We have a 450-pound safe in our upstairs, the other bedroom. We don't have children, we have dogs, so we don't need that extra bedroom. So we have a safe in there and some other stuff. And if I'd ever needed to move that safe downstairs, like I would hope that I could call a moving company to do so. But none of these companies even left that option open for me to call them for specific moving of pieces of furniture. So all that to say, like, I understand why their process was in place, but I felt like they left me and my use case out of the equation. And maybe that was a red flag to them. Maybe they only want to move full homes, but there was no way for me to sort of like break this system and tell them like, no, don't waste your time. This is exactly what I need. And I have a feeling that this relates to your business as well. Most of us are web designers. We build websites, or if you're a social media manager, you do social media, and you probably have packages in place. Same with web design, just a base package of what a website looks like. And I'm all for having those packages and those processes of how things work in your business. But every once in a while, there's going to come a client across your desk who is could be very valuable to you that doesn't fit into the exact process that you've built. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can decide if your process has to stay tried and true every single time, or if you can create deviations from your process or from your packages when the right client comes along. So let's talk about that a little bit. So first, I want to start by saying that boundaries and processes are 2 of the things that I talk about and teach about in my business a ton. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I create strategic websites that act as a hub for all of a business's online marketing efforts. And this doesn't just include like pay-per-click ads and Facebook ads. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making sure that a website is connected to the systems and processes that a business uses on a regular basis in order to make sure that their website is acting as a 24/7 employee, even when they're not around, even when they don't have their hands on the business. And this definitely involves creating strong processes for things like lead generation, onboarding a new client, working through a full build of something and then offboarding them at the end. And I don't work with my clients that far through, all the way through to offboarding their clients, but I do talk to them about what it looks like to move from their website to, let's say, a call, and what kind of is happening in between there, and then what's happening after that call to make sure that the lead is being nurtured and then hopefully closing a sale and onboarding into their business. So I'm a huge fan of processes and making sure that you have strong ones in place that you can follow day after day on a repeated basis to make your life easier, basically. But I also understand the nuances of client experience and how a process may not always work perfectly for the clients that you want to work with. So I am not saying, by no means am I saying that you should create a process and then anytime anybody comes along that has a different idea of how this should work, you just like run with the way that they want it to work. But I am saying that there are going to be some clients that come your way that are not textbook fitting into the process or the package that you've built. And let me give you an example from my own business. So I typically work with clients to build their website either from scratch or rebuild a website that's already out there but isn't performing in the way that they want it to. And again, isn't connected to those systems and processes that are keeping their business running on a regular basis. And I like to start from scratch with a website build. I was just telling someone the other day that like fresh WordPress installation and getting all of the details put together just so is one of the most satisfying parts of the work that I do. However, I do have some clients who come to me who don't need that. And of course, I look for red flags to double check that like this is actually someone I want to work with. But outside of that, I'm willing to bend my processes and change my packages or create a custom package for someone that I really want to work with, that fits into my niche, that, you know, has a need for something that I do. And recently I had a potential client come to me, and she has 2 podcasts. One of them is launching next month. And currently she only has one of them on her website. And her website is sort of that like typical blog layout. There's no real like home page or landing page that tells anybody who she is and what she does and how to navigate her website. It's just the, you know, sort of the post archive on her homepage. And she has a functioning website, but really thought that having a new homepage that could direct people to the different podcasts when the new one launches was something that would really work for her. Now, I can see, having done a little bit of research on her site, it's built with tools that I use. It's built with a template from someone that I trust. And I know that if I can just get in there and build this homepage, that I don't need to build her a whole new site. Now, do I understand that building the homepage might lead to some further work down the road? Sure do. Absolutely. But I knew that she was a good client for me, whether or not there was future work involved. The vibe check went well, and she just needed something that I didn't have a package for, again, because I typically do full website builds. So for this particular person, I, went through a similar process, but instead of offering her a full build and making her go through my onboarding and, sort of this like long drawn out process that really is better served for people who need full websites, instead, I took her through a shortened process in order to make sure that she's getting the attention from me that she needs, but that I'm not overextending myself or trying to fit her into a particular box that she does not fit in. And again, I've mentioned multiple times here, there were very few red flags. I was not stretching myself to do this project. It was built with tools that I knew. The vibes were good. We had a great conversation, and I just felt like I could really help this woman with the project that she needed, despite it not being something that I offer regularly to the masses. And that's really what I was looking for with a moving company, was someone who could hear what I was saying. And instead of coming back and saying, well, let us talk about your full house move, I needed someone to say, yeah, let's just talk about those 7 pieces that you need moved to your new property. And that's what I tried to do with this woman who approached me about just doing a homepage, because again, it felt like a good fit. So there are certainly instances like this in your own business where it's okay to break with your processes in order to work with someone that you want to work with. And yes, boundaries and systems and processes are there for a reason. And you have to feel confident in navigating your own boundaries and confident in holding the boundaries that are most important to you if you're going to break them in some other ways. So, creating those packages, that is a boundary, right? People need to be able to fit into those packages to work with you. But you're allowed to say, it's okay, you don't have to fit into one of these packages. And also, you still need to follow my normal modes of communication. We're still in my business, that means email is the main mode of communication. I'm not breaking my boundary that I'm going to let someone call me on the phone. I do not allow phone calls in my business. That is a conversation for another time, but that's a boundary that I know that I can never break. Otherwise, things start to feel really, or like client projects start to feel really daunting to me. So it's about that give and take on your boundaries and your processes to make sure that yes, you can pull down the wall in a few places, but still holding fast and steady to those other boundaries that are most important to you. So now I want to talk a little bit more about how you can decide if there are red flags creeping into this potential project that's come across your desk, or if you can actually take it on and have a successful have a successful project, even if it doesn't fit into your normal process. So let's talk just a little bit about how you can decide if it's worth it to take on a project that does not fit into your typical packages, systems, boundaries, and processes. So there's sort of a couple questions that you can ask yourself, and I've already alluded to them in this video, but let me lay them out for you. So first up, I want you, if a project comes across your desk that you're just not quite sure about and you're not sure how it fits into your business and the work you want to do, I want you to ask yourself, are you seeing any red flags? And if a project doesn't fit into your processes and packages, I would say that that's like a pink flag. Like, that's not a full on red flag, but it's certainly something to make you perk your ears up and make you keep your eyes wide open for any other potential red flags. So if you know that they're not going to fit into your processes and packages exactly as they are, and you're going to have to do something a little custom for this person, you want to make sure that you're not going to otherwise run into issues down the line. So, are they communicating well with you? Are they communicating with you in the way that you've asked them to? Are they giving you, responsive answers when you're on a call with them, or if you send them any forms to fill out prior to deciding if you're going to take on their project? And did you have a call with them and check their vibe? Make sure that what you think is happening is actually what they need, and that you're going to get along, and that this could be a successful project together. So the thing you need to ask yourself first is, are there additional red flags in addition to the fact that this doesn't fit into what I typically offer? The second question that I want you to ask yourself is, do they fit into my niche? And or is it something that I'm passionate about? So for me, I typically work with female founders who have growing businesses that need a new strategic WordPress website to work for them within their business. However, I also have a passion for businesses who offer education in the space of psychedelics, meaning magic mushrooms, LSD, so psilocybin, LSD, and some other stuff out there. There's a lot of therapeutic uses for those. And I have a real passion for helping businesses that live in that educational space of psychedelics. It is not what I focus most of my business on because I'm not ready to take that leap just yet, but it may be in the future. So for me, if a project of that magnitude were to come across my desk that didn't fit into my typical processes and needed something a little bit custom, that's an area where I'd be like, oh, hell yeah, like I would love to work with you. However, if this potential custom project comes out of left field from like a construction company run by a group of non-females who are not my normal people, I'm probably going to be like, ooh, I'm pretty sure I can refer you to a colleague because that's just not where I want to be doing my work, right? So ask yourself, number one, if it's in your niche. And number two, if it's not in your niche, is it something that you are otherwise passionate about working on? The next thing that I want you to ask yourself in general is if there was, if this is something that you think is going to be successful for you. So again, going back to that vibe check, making sure there's no red flags, and just having an internal conversation about where this project fits into your work, the kind of what you have scheduled out, and if it's something that you can truly commit time to, if you need to adjust your process for this particular project. And if you ask yourself those three things, you're going to have a really good basis for understanding if this is a project that could be beneficial to both you and the client, or if it's something that you should really be handing off, referring to a colleague, or letting them know that it's not the right fit for you at this time. So the fact that someone doesn't fit into your typical process or your typical packages does not mean that you have to say no outright. However, it does take a little bit of internal searching to make sure that even though this project does not fit into the business that you've built specifically, if it's something that you'd still feel really good about working on. And that's when it's okay to break with your processes and say, nope, it's okay. Like, let's come up with a solution for you. So, a couple of things to think about as sort of miscellaneous projects come across our desk. I feel like this is happening a little bit more often now that people are being more budget conscious in the current economy. People are more likely to say, just like my boyfriend and I did, like, oh no, like we can take care of this part ourselves. And yes, I have certainly had web design clients who say, oh no, we can take care of this part ourselves. And they do it terribly, and it makes my job a lot more difficult. So I understand why the process is in place by those moving companies to make sure that, people are going through the process that they have. But that said, we weren't trying to make the process more difficult. We were just trying to get to the answer that we actually needed. And it's totally okay if someone comes to you and says, hey, I just need you to do the design and I'm going to do the build. It's totally okay for you to say, no, 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 that's not how I work, because it never comes out the way that it's supposed to. 100% totally okay. But if they say that and you feel confident that you can hand them the design and you've done your job and you make your money on it and you do the best that you can on the design and hand it off, that is 100% okay. So feel free to take this advice, use it again as these potential projects, potential smaller projects, or potential custom projects are coming across your desk. Make sure that you're not just saying no to say no, but really feel into how it's going to fit into your business and if it's something you do want to work on or not. All right, I hope that this advice was helpful. If you have any questions or comments about projects that you have upcoming that you want want a little bit of back and forth on whether or not it works for you, drop me an email or drop me a comment below. You can always email me at hello@wandersoulco.com. I have an open door policy, open email policy, open inbox policy, let's say. I'd be happy to hear from you and have a little discussion about what custom projects you're trying to decide are right for your own business.